Suresh, we'll get started with you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Suresh Rangat. I'm your NDP candidate from Kitchener South-Hespeler. September 20, you have a choice between the people who has broken their promises time and time again and Jagmeet Singh, an NDP, who is fighting for you. Across the country, we know we are all worried about our jobs, the health of our loved ones, climate crisis, and even the public services we all count on. In the last 18 months, we have seen that Canadians can confront any situation if they have to, and if they choose to, and if they are together. But this last 18 months also have shown something thanks to the Liberals and the Conservative. So many public support which we were relying on weren't there when we needed it. If we need different results, we need to have different choices. Canadians need to be courageous during this time, and that's what the New Democratic Party and our leader Jagmeet Singh is offering. We can make the lives of Canadians better by investing more in affordable housing, childcare, and so many other things which the people need. And we can also make the lives of the people better by having the childcare provided to everyone when they needed it, making employment insurance work for us, giving access to the training and the lifelong learning, supporting the small businesses. We are going to make all this pandemic recovery, we are going to make the polluters and the big corporations pay for it, and not to increase your taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. Valerie, we'll start with your opening remarks as well.
Hi, I'm Valerie, and I'm a single mom that raised 3 kids on my own from the ages of 3, 6, and 7. We lived in Hespeler, and I spent many mornings with them before school at the Hespeler Arena. It wasn't always easy to put food on the table, and now things like rent and housing prices and childcare are even more expensive. This is what I hear from families at the door every single day. Young people are worried about whether they will be able to afford to buy a home. Parents are worried about the cost of raising their children while also supporting their parents. And seniors are looking for an affordable housing option to downsize to. That's why I'm running, because the Liberal Party has a plan in place to make life affordable for everyone. I've spent the last 15 years fighting to bring good jobs and investments, training and retraining opportunities to our community, and now I want to continue to help us finish the fight against COVID and bring us all forward.
Thank you. We'll begin the question portion of the session. Valerie, you'll begin with the first answer to the question, and then we'll go to Suresh right after. So the first question is, what is the priority local issue for the residents of the riding where you're seeking election in the election this September?
I've lived and served in this community a long time, since Scoresworth area was an actual amusement park, and Guelph Avenue in Hespeler was lined with farmers' fields. We've gone through a lot of change, and I've been part of that change, working with manufacturing and small businesses to help them through the transition of our economy. COVID has brought on even more change, and our business community is looking for stability, and our workforce is looking for opportunity. I can tell you that I've been out knocking doors every day, and the number one issue I hear is affordability. Housing prices are skyrocketing, rental prices are going up, and childcare is often too expensive to justify keeping both parents in the workforce. This needs to change, and the Liberal Party has a strong plan for $10 a day childcare, helping Canadians buy their first home sooner, and finishing the fight against COVID-19.
Thank you. Suresh, same question. What is the priority local issue for the residents of the riding you're seeking election in this election?
I'm going to door to door every day, and I talk to so many people, and they are all upset that they had a prime minister for such a long time, like 6 years, and still they don't have a place to live. Our affordable housing problem in Waterloo region, there are almost 7,000 people waiting for a place to live, and they have to wait for another 8 years. I'm meeting people who have been forced out of their home, not like eviction, but they cannot get a place to live. And because of the rents being so high, and no one is supporting them. In fact, I met a woman at her door. She's having cerebral palsy, and she's getting $1,000 in disability. She has to pay $781 in rent. That leaves her with $200 to live. I was deeply, deeply saddened that day, thinking that she has to go to the food bank to get the food for living. She cannot do anything else. She cannot buy the food she likes. She cannot buy a dress which she likes, or she cannot go anywhere. And she don't have a job. And still we are talking about, I'm hearing Liberal Party talking about affordable housing. It is required. But there is no action being taken at this point. There are 235,000 people getting homeless in an year in Canada. There are 10 to 35,000 people looking for a shelter. 6 years, nothing has been done. NDP is planning to build 500,000 affordable homes during the first 10 years. And we are going to renovate and retrofit and repair another 1.5 million houses, so that we have at least 2 million houses in the market, which will put a dent to this issue. Seniors, they are not treated. Long-term care has been a big issue. And in Waterloo region, we know so many people died in the long-term care homes due to the COVID. Even now, Trudeau don't think that that's an issue, a national issue to be taken care. And childcare, now they are talking about $10 childcare. But where are the childcare units available? If I'm ready to pay $10, but there should be more childcare units. So we never hear that kind of things from the conservative, nor the liberals. And in Waterloo region, the other thing, we have a very big drug problem. And we have to start taking that kind of things in perspective when we talk about people's welfare.
Thank you. Second question, do you support in principle the implementation of a proof of vaccination program for non-essential businesses? And Suresh, will begin with you.
Sorry, can you say the question again, please?
Do you support in principle the implementation of a proof of vaccination program for non-essential businesses?
Actually, I believe that everyone should vaccinate it in the interest of our own health and also the interest of the society. And we have to, I'm not talking about the mandatory thing, but I'm talking everyone should get vaccinated, because that helps you and your family and the people around safe.
Thank you. And Valerie, same question. Do you support an implementation of a vaccination, proof of vaccination program for non-essential businesses?
The Liberals have done everything in their power to have the backs of Canadians through this crisis. Now it's time to finish the fight against COVID. So we're launching a $1 billion COVID-19 proof of vaccination fund to support provinces and territories who implement a requirement for proof of vaccine credentials in their jurisdictions for non-essential businesses and public spaces. They're going to table legislation to ensure that every business organization that decides to require proof of vaccination from employees and customers can do so without the fear of a legal challenge. We've instituted mandatory vaccines on planes, trains, and in the federal public service to keep people safe and to prevent the further spread of this COVID. We're supporting proof of vaccination credentials. We've also provided safer ventilation in schools and businesses. The Liberal government invested over $34 million in the Waterloo region school boards. 80 cents on every dollar was federal for those schools to make them safer. And yes, I do support this.
Thank you. Third question is, what is your plan to continue support to small business during the remainder of the pandemic and beyond? And would you support higher business taxes? Valerie, we'll begin with you on that question.
So when we support Canada's businesses, we support the workers, families, and communities that rely on them. Since 2015, the government has made sure that Canada has the lowest combined small business tax rate in the G7. There's no question that COVID has been challenging for our business community. The Liberal government has stepped up to support businesses through the wage subsidy and rent subsidy programs. During the pandemic, we did more business online than ever before. And as the digital economy grows, we have to make sure that Canadian businesses are poised to compete and win. That's why we have a plan in place to help almost 160,000 small business and medium-sized businesses adopt new technologies and digitize their offerings. And we'll create jobs for almost 30,000 young people in the process. Canadians have a sense of fairness, and they want everyone to pay their fair share. And that's why we are going to work with our international partners to implement a global minimum tax so that the biggest companies in the world are not able to escape the taxes that they owe here in Canada. And we will raise corporate income taxes on the largest, most profitable banks and insurance companies who earn more than $1 billion a year.
Thank you. Suresh, what is your plan to continue to support small business during the remainder of the pandemic and beyond, and would you support higher business taxes?
To start with, we all know small businesses are really suffering. They're actually drowning in debt due to the problems they face during this pandemic. And during the pandemic, our leader, Jagmeet Singh, has fought for increasing the wage subsidy, which the Liberals were offering at 10%. We made it happen to 75%. So that shows Jagmeet Singh and NDP is supporting the small businesses. As we all know, small businesses are the engine of job creation in Canada, and we should not confuse the small businesses with the big corporation, which the Liberals and the Conservatives support. We are going to make sure the small businesses get the rehiring subsidies so that in the future, they can move into a level that they can have quality employees. One of the major things which we are trying to put is the farmer care. It is related to the small businesses also. Because if we provide the farmer care and the dental care and the mental health care in our system, in our universal healthcare system, the small businesses are going to save like $600 per year, by which they can get local recruitment, they can get quality people to support their businesses. But we are going to charge more taxes on the big corporations. We are going to make them pay their share of what they have to and what they owe to the economy. But having said that, small businesses, as I said before, they have billions of dollars debt. So we have to talk with the Chamber of Commerce, the small businesses, and find a way how to support them to get out of this crisis. And we have to provide them support by retraining programs so that they can hire employees and they can train the existing employees for the post-pandemic period.
Thank you. Suresh, the next question, we'll begin with you on this one, and it does involve pharmacare. Do you support universal pharmacare, and what is the estimated cost to the taxpayer?
Yes, to answer that question, yes, I do support the pharmacare because I am listening to people who cannot buy medication, the prescription medication, because they don't have the money. And as we all know, almost 12 million Canadians do not have the extended healthcare for them to buy the prescription drugs. So they are spending the money or they are not buying the medication. The money which we can find, if we include the pharmacare, that will help the federal government to negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies. So we can get the drugs at cheaper prices. So that way, but we have been trying to bring the pharmacare for such a long time. And the Liberals have been promising this for the last 27 years. Even last time also, when we tried to bring the universal pharmacare, Trudeau voted it down. So when we talk about Liberals and the Conservatives, they don't care about this pharmacare. The use of the pharmacare as only as an election platform item. And once the election is over, they just forget it. But for New Democratic Party, we really understand the people who are suffering because of the non-availability of the funds to buy the medication, and they just cannot do anything. So we have to support the pharmacare, and we will make it such a big thing if we get elected.
Thank you. Valerie, same question. Do you support universal pharmacare, and what is the estimated cost to the taxpayer?
No Canadian should have to choose between prescription drugs or putting food on the table. And that's why we are moving forward with national pharmacare. We are committed to working with the provincial and territorial governments and partners and stakeholders to continue this progress. Work is underway on this, and we've already signed the first provincial territorial agreement to accelerate the implementation of national universal pharmacare, and have funded a $500 million a year national strategy for high-cost drugs and rare diseases. The Liberal Party is committed to getting this done.
Thank you. How can residents of Waterloo Region support reconciliation with Indigenous people across Canada? And Valerie, will begin with you on that question.
We're committed to confronting the legacy of residential schools, a dark chapter in Canada's history. While we cannot bring back those who were lost, we can and we will tell the truth of these injustices, support our communities and survivors, and forever honor their memory. We will continue our work to eliminate all clean, long-term drinking water advisories. Since 2015, we've lifted 109 long-term water advisories, including reaching the milestone of lifting 105 water advisories this past April, matching the number in place when the Liberals committed to eliminating all long-term water advisories on public systems and reserves. In every community with a long-term drinking water advisory, there is a project team and action plan in place to resolve it. 109 long-term drinking water advisories have been lifted and 51 remain. We cannot and we will not abandon our obligation to ensure the First Nation peoples on reserve have safe and clean drinking water. We will continue to take action to confront systemic racism against Indigenous peoples, especially in the justice system and healthcare. And water advisories, we've prevented 183 short-term advisories from becoming long ones. So we are committed to doing all that we can in these areas.
Thank you. Suresh, how can residents of Waterloo Region support reconciliation with Indigenous people across Canada?
New Democratic Party believes in the reconciliation with the Indigenous community on true and equal partnership. But the thing which is happening now in Canada and what Liberals are talking about, they are trying from 2015 for providing clean drinking water to the Indigenous communities. I'm just imagining myself, if my pipe is not giving me drinking water for one day, how much of concern I will have. But the Trudeau and Liberals think that, oh, they have another 5 years. They promised 2026 now. They're talking about another 5 years for our Indigenous people to have clean drinking water. I'm really frustrated and upset about the actions of the Liberal Party or the Conservatives in that matter, to postpone things so that the real people who need it, they don't get the benefit. When we found the 215 children who was buried, within 2 weeks, Trudeau and his Liberals went to fight the Indigenous children in the court. They are spending $100 million or more to fight Indigenous communities, which is it is almost equal to what Stephen Harper spent in the last 3 years of his tenure. And the Liberals are still talking about we care about the Indigenous communities. In a Canada where our own citizens don't have drinking water, and there is a government who was there for the last 6 years, now they are making a promise which always break after another 5 years. So we have to make this happen now. A New Democratic Party, if we get into power, we don't give excuses. We don't put people there to monitor things. We make things happen the minute is required. And as I said, indigenous communities need support by way of drinking water, safe places to live, to protect them from the crime against indigenous women. So all these things are important, and that should happen now, not after 5 years.
Thank you. What are your ideas for addressing the housing crisis, ownership and rentals in Waterloo region? Suresh, we'll begin with you.
As I said before, affordable housing is a major issue in our region. 7,000 people are waiting for a house to live, and they have to wait for 8 years. Yes, we can use the, sorry, what's the term you used? Can I say it, have that again?
What are your ideas for addressing the housing crisis, ownership and rentals in Waterloo?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get that ownership and rental. That's the only way, this is happening in so many other countries around the world. And my daughter actually is living in another country, and she is also thinking about this ownership and rental part of it. That's only one solution we have. But to resolve this issue, our region has to move into a lot of other things like inclusionary zoning. They have to go for density zoning, and they have to use the regional lands for building affordable houses. I have seen in so many cases, the region or the municipalities, they are not understanding the seriousness of the situation, and they just provide even the supporting the builders and developers at the cost of the common man in our region. So affordable housing, which we have to sort out immediately, it's not one way to solve it. There is different ways. And if we solve the affordable housing problem in our region, we can resolve the homelessness in our region, and then the drug abuse, the mental problems, so many other things which we have in the region can be sorted out. And I work with a lot of community, a lot of people who are going for the affordable housing solutions, and which make me feel there is not seriousness in the part of the region or the provinces or even the federal government at this point that this should be tackled immediately.
Thank you. Valerie, what are your ideas for addressing the housing crisis, ownership and rentals in Waterloo region?
Thank you. Before the Liberal government took power in 2015, the federal government was not involved in the housing space at all. But the Liberals brought forward the National Housing Strategy, a $40 billion 10-year plan that has grown with input from Canadians, so that today it's a $70 billion plan. The Waterloo region was chosen for the Rapid Housing Initiative. That means that 12 months from when shovels go into the ground, you will actually see completed units. We have a strong plan to make housing more accessible, creating a rent-to-own program to make that first purchase easier, creating a new tax-free savings account to help Canadians save their down payment tax-free, ensure more transparency in the home buying process by eliminating the blind bidding and speculation that's driving up prices here in KW. Increasing the housing supply by building and retrofitting 1.4 million new homes. And we will work to end chronic homelessness through the Rapid Housing Initiative and provide more support for veterans housing.
Thank you. What measures do you propose to assist local technology companies? Valerie, we'll begin with you.
We have here in the KW area such a vibrant workforce and innovative business community from our hardworking manufacturing sector that in many cases pivoted to provide support during our COVID, and also to the tech sector and our incredible post-secondary school institutions. The Liberal Party has a plan in place that will help our businesses recover from this economic downturn while supporting them to hire the help that they need. I spent the last 15 years working with the businesses in our region to create jobs here, attract investment here, and help our community thrive. I know the challenges that our business community is facing, and I have the right experience to be a strong local advocate in Ottawa. And I know that the federal Liberal government has always been very, very aware of the importance of our tech sector, especially here in the Waterloo region, and has been very generous providing financial support to our many startups to help them grow and be successful.
Thank you. Suresh, what measures do you propose to assist local technology companies?
Waterloo region is actually known for the technology sector. A lot of the big giants in software and other technology is moving to Waterloo because of the availability of the talent in our region. University of Waterloo is one of the major institutions in the world which provides that support. But one of the major things which we are facing in among the students is the student loans which they are having at this point. So what NDP is planning to do is to eliminate the student loan by 20,000. You might be thinking, what am I talking about when we're talking about student loans and the technology companies? We need more talents to be available in our region so that more people, more companies are moving to the region. So as any small business or any startup companies, they need quality labor. And if more companies have to be moving to our region, the availability of labor or the quality technology students should be there. So if we have to move them to Waterloo region, we have to provide support. We have to make the post-secondary education free for the students. And we have to provide them the support by eliminating the student loans so that when they move out of their schools, they can find a job. They can start working in technology companies like startup companies. They don't have to be looking for 100,000 or 200,000 jobs. So they can grow with the technology companies because they don't have any liability on their book. They don't have to pay down the student loans. Then they can buy affordable houses. So the things which we provide to our youth should help them to get out of their debts, and thereby more people will be available in the technology companies from the University of Waterloo, and that will help. But in addition to that, we have to consider small business. Again, I say small business is the major engine for producing jobs in our economy. So, and small business are facing a big debt problem at this time. And if we have to support the technology companies or the small businesses, we have to sit with them along with the Chamber of Commerce, understand their issue, discuss their issue, and find a common ground.
Thank you. What are your plans to grow an environmentally sustainable economy across Waterloo region? Suresh, will begin with you on that question.
The first thing which we have to understand, the climate crisis is not something which we can solve in another 15 years. The effects of the climate crisis is being felt all over Canada. Experts have said that during last month or the 2 months, out of the 800 sudden deaths in the BC, 600 people died because of overheating. And that shows the effect of the climate crisis is started affecting individuals like us. New Democratic Party is trying to stabilize the rise in the temperature to 1.5 degree so that we don't cross the threshold where we get into a disastrous situation. As we all know, there are 430,000 green jobs all over Canada now, and it is growing day by day. To make it like an environment-friendly country, first thing we have to move into helping the region for retrofitting the homes into energy efficient buildings. We have to have more charging stations for electric vehicles, and we need to help and train and retrain people get into this new green economy. New Democratic Party is going to do everything to make this happen. The money which we can find is by eliminating the subsidies to the big gasoline companies. So by increasing the number of electric cars, the possibility of providing electric charging station, helping the provinces, help the citizens retrofit their home for climate emergency, the efficiency. All this will help the region and the country to move into a green economy.
Thank you. Valerie, what are your plans to grow an environmentally sustainable economy across Waterloo region?
Well, we don't have to decide between growing the economy and tackling climate change. They go hand in hand. And the Liberal plan is the only plan that ties our environmental efforts to creating good, sustainable jobs. We're focused on helping businesses and workers make the transition to a zero emissions future. We're working directly with each carbon intensive industry because each industry is facing specific challenges. For example, we cut taxes in half for businesses that manufacture zero emissions products. And we launched a net zero accelerator fund to help some of our largest emitters transition off fossil fuels. I spent my career working with the businesses in our community, so I understand their needs and their challenges, and I will be a strong advocate on their behalf.
Thank you. Where are the priority areas for investment in skills development and post-secondary education across Waterloo region? Valerie, we'll begin with you.
In my work with the City of Kitchener Economic Development and as chair of the Workforce Planning Board, I have dealt for many years with skills training and retraining. So this is an area that I'm very passionate about. There's no question there is an ongoing skills shortage, and we have people without jobs and jobs without people. We need to educate our young people that these are good, well-paid jobs that are worth pursuing. That's why in my work with the Business Education Partnership, I participated in many career days and spoke to the students as early as grade 7 and 8 about opportunities that are available to them that require specific job skills, some of which you can obtain at institutions like Conestoga College, maybe instead of pursuing a general university degree. So locally, the Liberal government has invested $7 million through the Skilled Trades Awareness and Readiness Program here in Conestoga College to encourage women, Indigenous people, newcomers, and people with disabilities and youth to pursue skills in the pursue careers rather in the skilled trades. They've also provided generous tax credits for tradespeople that will help them cover the cost of their very expensive tools. A re-elected Liberal government will move forward on our plan to establish new apprenticeship service, which will connect 55,000 first-year apprentices in the Red Seal trades with opportunities at small and medium-sized employers. We will launch a clean jobs training center to help industrial, skill, and trade workers across sectors to upgrade or gain new skills on the leading edge of zero carbon industry. I've worked a lot with the Business Education Partnership and Conestoga College and encouraging students to graduate with good, sustainable, well-paying jobs. In many cases, they have their jobs lined up before they even graduate. So there's a lot of opportunity here, and the Waterloo region is well-positioned to help people attain success through the skilled trades.
Thank you. Suresh, where are the priority areas for investment in skills development and post-secondary education across our region?
Actually, we all know availability of tradespeople are very short, very much short in the Waterloo region and all over Canada, I would say. But the major thing is that, the federal government has, or the provincial government has to start supporting the training and the retraining of the people who are currently there and also the new people who are coming out. So for them, more opportunities should be provided. So just getting a training in the Conestoga College, there are so many people who are coming now and getting trained there, but they have to be provided the opportunities for them to find a way to live. Post-secondary education, as we all know, the students are drowning in the debt again. And no action has been taken by any of the governments, the Liberal or Conservative, to support them. In fact, the federal government charged $4.5 billion on interest payment on the students this time. And this is something which we cannot accept. When students are finding it hard to find an affordable place to live and a good job, they are being charged $4.5 billion on their loans. If NDP is coming to power, we are going to eliminate the $20,000 loan on the students. And we are also going to give a 5-year moratorium for making the payments. So by helping the students to get into a stable ground is what we should do. And Waterloo region is a great place where people can find a job. But thing is that they also need to have a stable life by having an affordable house without a student loan debt and so other things which help them build a future.
Thank you. What programs should the federal government implement to attract foreign trained professionals? Suresh, we'll begin with you.
Yeah, that's a major issue we are facing in Canada. So we have to improve that the credential validation process for the people who are coming from foreign trained professionals in Canada. Most of them are coming here, and because of their degrees or the qualifications, credential is not available, they have to settle down into lower level jobs, which is waste of talent in Canada. And the NDP, if we get into power, we will make sure that the credential validation is made faster and make it easier for the foreign trade person to come here. And we should also select the people who really we need in Canada. So that kind of filtering process, which help better trade professionals to come to Canada, and immediately they can work in the fields which they are good, will help the process.
Thank you. Valerie, what programs should the federal government implement to attract foreign trained professionals?
Canada is recognized as having one of the most progressive immigration policies, and we really focus with the point system of attracting foreign educated immigrants that were going to address the specific labor skill shortages that we have here in whatever profession they are at. So we are going to reform the immigration programs to expand the pathways. There are certain specific measures that we are currently undertaking. So we're expanding the pathways to permanent residence for temporary foreign workers and former international students through the express entry point system. We're building on the economic mobility's path pilot and work with employers and communities across Canada to welcome 2,000 skilled refugees to fill labor shortage in demand sectors such as healthcare. We're establishing a trusted employer system to streamline the application process for Canadian companies hiring temporary foreign workers to fill labor shortages that cannot be filled by Canadian workers. We're growing and improving the Global Talent Stream program by simplifying the permit renewals, in upholding the 2-week processing time, and establishing an employer hotline to allow Canadian companies to attract and hire highly skilled workers. This has been so important to our rapidly growing tech system, where we've been able to bring people up from primarily the Silicon Valley that were wanting to relocate in Canada. So we've really been able to accelerate that process. Continue to work with provinces, territories, and regulatory bodies to improve foreign credential recognition. When we bring people here to Canada, we want them to succeed, and it's very important that we recognize their foreign attained credentials. So we need to really make a supreme effort in that regard. Introduce a new labor mobility tax credit to allow workers in the building and construction trades to deduct up to $4,000 in eligible travel and temporary relocation expenses, giving them a tax credit of up to $600 a year. We know that Canada has a very cyclical economy. Certain provinces boom when others are suffering. So it's important that we encourage the mobility of our workforce across interprovincial boundaries so that we can maximize and utilize the current workforce that we have. We are also working to reduce the processing times that have been impacted by COVID-19 to under 12 months. There's no question that COVID-19 did disrupt our immigration process, and we need to ramp it back up because, as we've already addressed, we do have workforce shortages, and this has largely been addressed over the years with immigration. So we're really noticing that that's increased with a reduction in our immigration. We need to introduce electronic applications for family reunification. We're implementing a program to issue visas to spouses and children abroad while they wait for the processing of their permanent residency application so that families can be together sooner.
Thank you. Are new international trade agreements a priority? Valerie, we'll begin with you.
Canada has always been a major partner in global trade, and we need to do that because we have a very, very small domestic market. So that is why we are global free traders, and we are always exploring new opportunities with other countries around the world to the benefit of both parties. Currently, we are negotiating a trade deal with United Kingdom because as they've withdrawn from the European Union, they now have to negotiate their own independent trade deals with every country they used to have access to through the European Union. So there is a great focus right now on getting that in place.
Thank you. Suresh, are new international trade agreements a priority?
Yes, new international trade agreements are a priority, but we have to look at this from the perspective of Canadian workers. We know our manufacturing sector has moved into different countries, and the people who are in that sector don't have the jobs. But at the same time, we cannot be having everything in our country, and we might be shortage of things which it's not available here. So international trade agreements help us from that perspective. But when we are going for any agreement with any other country, we have to make sure the country's working people are protected. Not only the greed for the money for the business should be supported. That greed part should not be supported. The requirement should be analyzed and the agreement should be entered, which helps the country and at the same time, the people working here. But when we are trying to help the businesses, like we should always make sure that we are not getting into any situations like we are helping oppressive regimes, which don't care about human rights and, they are suppressing the people's right and there is not freedom of talk. So that kind of countries, when we are getting into agreement, we should be very careful. But overall, international trade agreements are good for the country if they are protecting our workers also.
Thank you. What are Waterloo Region's infrastructure priorities? Suresh, we'll begin with you.
Our infrastructure priority in Waterloo region, I think we should be going for developing more, maybe housing. Housing should be a major thing which we can help people. And the other thing, according to me, we should have more educational institutions like trade so that we can help the people.
Thank you. Valerie, what are Waterloo Region's infrastructure priorities?
We know that investments in infrastructure create good jobs and build more inclusive communities and help us build back better from COVID-19. We're seeing the impact of these investments right here in the Waterloo region, including the Ion Light Rail transit service expansions at Conestoga College, and recent upgrades to the South-Hespeler wastewater treatment plant. These have all been accomplished with substantial funding from the federal government. During COVID, the federal government stepped up to support a safe return to school by funding 80 cents of every dollar invested to improve ventilation in our classrooms. Since the start of COVID, the federal government has approved more infrastructure projects than at any time period previously to help keep people employed and invest in our local economies and build better, safer communities. Our number one priority is always the health and safety of Canadians, and we will do whatever we can to ensure that.
Thank you. What are your party's plans for national urban transit? Valerie, we'll begin with you on that question.
A lot of the infrastructure spending that I just referred to has focused on transit systems. We know that it's important to focus on urban transit because this is a great place where we can focus on our environmental footprint and decrease our carbon emissions. So that's been a great focus throughout the country, and that will continue to be so. We need to move people cleanly and quickly to and from work and to whatever they want to do. So that will be an ongoing focus.
And Suresh, same question. What are your party's plans for national urban transit?
Urban transit system is a very important thing, in this particular climate crisis situation. Like gasoline spending will be increasing if people are using their cars, for their own purposes. So public transport, but if we increase the availability of the public transport, people will be using the public transport. And also the development in the region should be done across this corridor where public transit is available. That even the iron system in our region, I don't believe that it is helping everyone. We should be benefited. So the last mile system, we should have, transport system which will take the people from their houses to this real big transit systems available. So overall, if we talk about the environment and the crisis which we are facing, more usage of the public transport, and NDP will be investing more on that. And even we will be connecting our housing issue, building the affordable houses and connecting with our public transit policy. That could be another way to solve the affordable crisis and also addressing the climate emergency.
Thank you. The next question is, do we need an election right now? Suresh, we'll begin with you on that question.
I don't believe that we needed an election this time. The main reason that we are in the mid of a crisis. So what happens is like you are in the middle of a hockey game, and then someone is coming and asking to tell, okay, how did I do? And give me some suggestions so that I can continue. It's not like a hockey game. It's the people's life. People are facing problems, like the small businesses are suffering. The people, the average man is suffering. They are worried about their job. They are worried about the health of their loved ones. And at this point, the only reason the Liberal Party has chosen to go for an election, as we all know, is to get the majority. And they are spending almost 500 million on this election, which could have been done after 2 years. They have a lot of promises they have to keep, and these 2 years would have helped them to keep. But what Trudeau was telling, that I have to come back to the people and ask their opinion. That's like someone saying that you have been entrusted a job and you have been given the power to do the job, but in between you become doubtful and come to us, ask our opinion. So are you going to select and elect the same person who became doubtful in between a crisis and come back to you and ask your opinion? So according to me, the elections was not at all required at this point, and it's a waste of public money, and it's a disregard to the sentiments and the emotions of Canadians.
Thank you. Valerie, do we need an election right now?
I think the reason that we're having an election right now is because our world right now in 2021 is very different than it was back in October 2019 when we fought the last election. If you think of it, we were focusing on very different things then. We had no idea that the COVID train was heading down the tracks our way and was going to take up the global economy with this global pandemic in just 5 short months. I think of my work at the City of Kitchener and things that I was focusing on prior to COVID-19. Once that happened, they completely shifted all the work that we did in economic development. And rather than being proactive, we were extending ourselves to help the business community survive, to get through to the other side of this COVID crisis. And I think the federal government did launch a number of very effective programs to keep families and people and businesses safe and secure and afloat to the other side of the COVID storm. So having said that, what we fought the election on then and got a mandate to govern, those issues are not what everyone's focusing on now. People are still very much focusing on COVID-19 and getting their kids back to school safely and hoping that it works this time. So we need, at this pivotal time in Canada's history, I would argue one of the most pivotal times in our history, to go back to Canadians and say, okay, what do you want us to focus on now? What is your vision for the future? And which party has a plan that most closely aligns with your vision? There are a few different visions on the table here, and we need to check in with Canadians, give them the opportunity to have their say. Do you want to keep moving forward? Do you want to continue to fight the climate change more aggressively? Do you want to tackle affordability for everyone? Do you want to bring in affordable childcare that will allow particularly women to get back into the workforce? Because it takes at least two incomes now to buy a home. And at $2,000 a month for toddler care here in our region, it doesn't make economic sense to have two people in the workforce. So we need to make sure that that $10 a day childcare plan that we already have agreements with 7 provinces and 1 territory, we need to make sure that moves forward. And Aaron O'Toole has indicated that it's off the table if they win this election, and that they're going to reverse some of the climate change targets to go back to the ineffective ones in the Stephen Harper days. So this is why we needed to have an election. And things were getting so that we weren't able to progress things through Parliament in a timely fashion. It took us many months to pass that budget bill. And it was just getting rancorous and uncooperative. And so it was time to go back and get another mandate, see what people want for the future of Canada. And that's why we're having an election. And I would argue this opportunity, and maybe Canadians need to think, why do the other parties not want to give Canadians a say in the future of this country?
Thank you. Why is your party leader the best candidate to be Prime Minister? Valerie, we'll begin with you on that question.
Thank you. I'm a firm believer in experience. Experience in any job makes you better at the job. There's no question. And a lot of that experience comes from on-the-job learning. You can have all the education you want, but the real learning happens when you get in the job. I think our Prime Minister has done a very good job over the last 6 years. When he was first elected the first time, we did not foresee that the President of the United States would end up being who it was. And that was an extremely challenging 4 years when he had to renegotiate our NAFTA trade agreement, the most important trade agreement, I would argue, in the world. And Canada needed to have a good agreement for all of us going forward. And it was a very delicate operation. And under the leadership of our Prime Minister, we did manage to handle that. Now in the second mandate, right off the bat, pretty much, we got hit with this unprecedented global pandemic that took out the world economies. It's been very stressful for all levels of government. And the government had to instantly create programs to sustain our families and businesses through the COVID crisis. You can't shut down businesses and tell people they can't come to work, and we don't know for how long it will be. Tell businesses, you're closed, and we can't tell you when you're going to open again, and expect people are going to be able to pay their mortgages, pay their rent, and put food on their table. So in an unprecedented fashion, our government, under the leadership of our current Prime Minister, was able to come up with innovative programs right from scratch and get money in bank accounts in 2 weeks. That was unheard of. And it's largely thanks to the dedication and hard work of our public servants who work 24/7, round the clock, to make that happen. Were there things that were not perfect and could have been dealt differently? Probably. And we always learn more from our mistakes than our successes. So there's learning there. And then we need to look at the COVID vaccine situation. Our job as a federal government is primarily to keep Canadians safe and secure. And due to the decision of previous governments, at the start, we had no capability anymore to produce vaccines here in Canada. And that was a mistake. We had a world-renowned laboratory, Connaught Laboratories, that was privatized and then sold off, and we lost that capability. And as someone who has always been a champion locally for local manufacturing, it was heartbreaking, and it left us very vulnerable. But our government stepped up and sourced a number of top vaccines from around the world, and we got those shots delivered to the provinces and shots in arms. And although the ramp up might have been slower than some countries to start with, it's where you finish the race, not where you start. And we now have the highest vaccination rate in the world. And I think we can all be proud of that. So when we look at experience, when we look at our record, when we look at being there for Canadians when it really matters, I think, why would you want to change your racehorse in the middle of a race? People don't do that. We're not finished with COVID yet. It's still out there. And we have to be vigilant and keep encouraging people to get 2 doses of vaccine so that this doesn't spread. We've invested with Moderna so that we will not be vulnerable the next time this happens, because it will happen again. And we will have domestic capability to produce vaccine for Canadians here in Canada. So I have every confidence in our leadership. And I would strongly encourage people to stay with the partner and the leadership that you know that has been there for you through this COVID crisis and will continue to be so in the future.
Thank you. Suresh, why is your party leader the best candidate to be Prime Minister?
That's a very quick question. Let me tell you what a leader should not be first. And then I can talk about why our leader should be the better leader. We had a prime minister who went into election in between a crisis, telling that his mandate for 2019 was not for this. A prime minister of a country is not elected for managing a crisis. He managed the crisis when it comes. If a country attacks another country, the prime minister will take care of that situation. No one thinks that a war will come. No one will think that a crisis will come. No one will think that a pandemic will come before electing a prime minister. But the government's job is to consider this as a crisis and manage the crisis, finish the crisis, make everyone happy, make the Canadians or the people of the country safe, and then go back to them, go back to the voters and ask them, okay, I have done this job, so please let me know what better I can do. But in our case, the prime minister thought in between, like we are having a fourth, a stage of the COVID situation, and still he thought some of his strategies might have advised him that people are scared and people are looking at him for support. But when he looked at that support and the appreciation in the eyes of the people, he thought, okay, this is the best time for us to get a majority. Now, I was hearing Valerie saying that the people should have experience in running a government. I just would like to know what experience Trudeau had in 2015 in running a government. He didn't have any experience at all. So there were people behind him to help him and support him. If experience matters, why is Trudeau fighting the Indigenous children, not to give them some kind of awards where the Human Rights Tribunal has awarded? Why is Trudeau not providing the people who need drinking water? A leader should not be someone who runs away from the field when people are in a crisis. A leader should be the person who supports the people and lead them in the front to confront the situation. What Jagmeet Singh was doing during this pandemic, the Liberals was offering $1,000 on CERB for the people who were suffering. Jagmeet said, no, that is not enough. We have to pay $2,000. How did a leader of 6 years experience think that the people of Canada can live with $1,000? How did he think that 10% of the wage subsidy was enough for the businesses to run? What Jagmeet did, he made the Liberals increase it from 10% to the 75%. In between, Trudeau started to reducing the $2,000 to $1,200. Again, our leader has to step in. We have been fighting for the people. Our leader has been fighting for the people, whereas Liberals were supporting their rich friends and the big corporations and the ultra-rich. Trudeau didn't support a motion brought by our leader, to tax 1% the people who are having $20 million net worth. Trudeau voted against that. Again, we started putting the pharmacare for the people. Liberal Party and the Conservative were against it. But that's the kind of leadership, like when we understand the people problem and we find a solution to the problem and we don't ditch them in the midst of a crisis, that's the kind of leader our leader Jagmeet is. But Trudeau, he is scared, he don't want to face a situation, and he will always go back. And that's what I'm saying. Liberal Party cannot be trusted to become another, to have another government, because we can get into another crisis and they will do the same thing. So whenever a crisis comes, he will stop doing what he's supposed to do and he will ask us, oh, what should we do? So is that a prime minister we need? Or is someone like Jagmeet, who has supported the people all over the pandemic and have supported the government, a minority government, just because we thought this is not the time for the election. This is not the time to make people worried about a situation like this. The only thing we have to focus is the COVID crisis, and we have to solve. The last thing which I was hearing was, oh, the 2019 election, the situations have changed. No, nothing has changed in Canada. Affordable housing is not there. Indigenous people don't have drinking water. There is not enough childcare facilities. The women, particularly the Prime Minister Trudeau, professes him to be a feminist, or he's supporting the women. 4,600 women have joined a lawsuit against the military. The women are still driving hours or waiting 6 to 8 weeks, or getting accessible abortion services. What did this experienced leader from 2015 do for them? What did he do to provide the clean drinking water to the indigenous communities? He didn't do anything. So do we need a leader like Trudeau who runs away from the crisis? Or do we need a leader like Jagmeet who has stood with the people and done a lot of people during this time, and he is going to support the people's requirement, and when we will be fighting for the people. So we need Jagmeet, not Trudeau, not Arinchur.
Thank you. How will you fund the healthcare system? Suresh, we'll begin with you on that question.
First thing, we always talk about money. We passed through a crisis, the pandemic crisis. We spent almost $1 trillion for passing through this crisis. Every government should have priorities. When the government thinks that pharmacare is not a priority, or drinking water for the indigenous people is not a priority, they talk about the funds. The funds are available within the system itself. But the only thing which we need is to make sure that we have a priority. The people are going to be supported. People are suffering at this point. A lot of people, they cannot buy the prescription drugs. They have to pay from their pocket. And as I said before, almost 10 million Canadians don't have extended healthcare. They have to pay from this. Do we need a country like Canada to ignore them, saying, oh, where do we find the money? Money is there always in the system. Like we found the money to manage this crisis. We will find the money for the pharmacare. Other thing, the pharmacare is something which is going to, governments are going to buy the drugs directly from the pharmaceutical companies. So we will be able to negotiate the prices, which is not available at this point. So that will save a lot of money for us. But again, I'm saying, if the money is required, we will find it. And there are so many other reallocation processes available. We can spend money on this, pharmacare, the dental care, and the mental health care.
Thank you. Valerie, how will you fund the healthcare system?
First of all, I want to thank all the doctors, nurses, and frontline workers that have dedicated their lives to helping us through COVID. It's been an extremely stressful time for them, and they're tired and they're burned out, and we're all thinking of them, and we're so grateful for their support. So one thing that COVID has done is shone a light on many inadequacies in our system, and healthcare is one of them that, probably should have been addressed before, but we didn't realize how severe some of the problems were. So this is an opportunity for us to address those things going forward. So to relieve the pressure on our local healthcare teams, a Liberal government is going to provide support to hire 7,500 doctors and nurses to help deal with the backlog of less urgent procedures that have accumulated while we had to set them aside so we would have emergency beds and ICU beds available for people with severe COVID symptoms. We're going to improve the care in long-term care homes. I know we were actually quite horrified to see what was happening in those long-term care homes. While it is a provincial mandate and responsibility, obviously, if the federal government had to respond with the military to help provide nutrition and feed the patients and residents in long-term care because their relatives could no longer come in to do there is a role for the federal government to play. So we are going to work to hire 50,000 personal support workers and raise their wages to at least $25 an hour. They do such important, vital work, and they need to be compensated accordingly. Clearly, there are not enough of them in the system, and we need to address that. We are going to fund publicly accessible mental health care. This COVID crisis has taken such a toll on everyone's mental health, from children all the way up through to our seniors. It's been a very, very isolating experience. And human beings are social beings, and we need social contact. And it's been terrible to be in the social contact desert. So we need to help each other through to the other side and provide the mental supports to help people recover from these periods of isolation. We're going to create 10 days of paid sick leave for federally regulated workers. People shouldn't have to choose between going to work sick or feeding their families. And that's clearly what happened during COVID. And it was frustrating to see that it was so difficult to get even 3 sick days for some people. So the federal government has no control over provincially mandated workers, but at least for federally mandated workers, they will have 10 paid sick days going forward so they can do what they need to do for themselves and their families and their workplace to keep everyone safe. And we're immediately investing $6 billion on top of the $4 billion already committed to support the elimination of the healthcare wait lists. You know, we've already had long, extensive wait lists, excuse me, in some parts of our country, but they got much worse during COVID. So we need to address that. We need to invest more so that we can deal with that backlog.
Thank you. What is your vision for the future of Canadian business? Valerie, we'll begin with you on that question.
Canadian businesses have always been extremely resourceful and nimble. Waterloo region is a shining example. We are the tech capital of Canada. Proudly, we have the largest Google site here in Kitchener. And we were chosen because, pardon me, because of our workforce, which largely comes from our post-secondary institutions here. I remember Stephen Wood saying once, the reason that Google made their Canadian, the headquarters in Toronto, but the largest facility is here, is because the graduates from U of W outperform MIT graduates 1 year out, 5 year out, 10 years out. And our workforce is the secret to our success. So that's what the success of our local business is built on, whether it's manufacturing workers, tech workers, healthcare. We have lots of finance and insurance here. And it's because of the quality of our workforce, and people recognize that. And that's what's going to carry us forward into the future. We have excellent post-secondary educational institutes here. Wilfrid Laurier University, University of Waterloo, Conestoga College. They are top of class. And so that's what generates the workforce of the future. That's what attracts students here, international students to study here. And with any luck, we're able to keep them here so that they can employ their skills here in Canada, in Ontario, and hopefully in our region. So that will be the success. And we do need government support to help develop our startups. And the federal Liberal government has always been there for us. And I'm very confident that they will be in the future because they realize when they invest in the Waterloo region, they get great return for those dollars invested because we know how to deploy it effectively and maximize the opportunities for everyone in our community.
Thank you. Suresh, what is your vision for the future of Canadian business?
Canadian business is not the big corporations. They are small businesses. Majority of the jobs created in our country is through the small businesses. And the small businesses are suffering at this point. As I said before, they have billions of dollars in debt, and they don't know how to survive this crisis. We have to support them. We have to extend this wage subsidy and the hiring subsidy so that they can have new people and also keep the employees continue with them. So at least, till they pass through this crisis, that support should be there. Only if we support the small businesses, our economy will grow. So support of the small business is more important than supporting the big corporations. Big corporations are bringing job to our region, but that's not where we live. We have part-time workers, we have students, we have single moms, we have gig workers. All of them are in our community. We have to think about how we can support them. They are making the major bulk of the workforce in our country. So small businesses are depending upon them. We don't need only the technology giants in our region. We need other manufacturing things to be going up. Our small businesses has to be supported, like providing more talent to them. Farmer care, as I talked, or the dental care or the mental health care will help the small businesses to have quality employees and to make their business grow. So the future of Canadian business is very bright, but we have to start thinking or limiting our thoughts. The Liberal Party and the Conservative think the business means the big businesses, and they take the orders from big corporations. We are forgetting, as we know, the internet, the CRTC recently passed an order so that the smaller internet providers cannot provide the things cheap to us. That is also going to affect the small businesses and the employees and the people who are working there. Federal government don't care about these things. And I'm talking about federal governments, the liberals or the conservatives. So if the business has to grow in Canada, small businesses has to be supported. Federal government, the liberals, when we passed a law for supporting the small businesses for the intergenerational transfers of their business. After a few days, we heard the finance ministry is postponing it to January. Then the finance minister came and said that, no, that is not there. This is the kind of support. Is this the kind of support the federal government is going to give small businesses? It's not the talk that matters. Do something. And for that matter, we need NDP because we are working people. We are not big corporations. We are not ultra rich. We are working people. And we understand the people need more than anyone. And we don't report to the big corporations.
Thank you. We'll now move on to concluding remarks. So candidates will provide closing remarks in reverse order from opening remarks. So with that, we'll begin with Valerie with her closing remarks.
Thank you, James. This is such a critical election. It's such a pivotal time in our country's history. It's time to finish the fight against COVID-19 and move forward for everyone. Canadians have sacrificed so much throughout the pandemic and have stepped up to protect themselves and their communities by getting vaccinated. The federal government has been there for Canadians throughout this crisis, providing financial support for families and businesses to weather the storm and ensuring that we have more than adequate supplies of very safe, effective vaccines for everyone that's eligible to have them. And we will continue to do that and continue to have Canadians' backs and put the health and safety of Canadians first. We have a very concrete, fully costed platform and program to help deal with our affordability issues, to help move Canada forward to the future, so that families can have affordable childcare, so that they can participate in the workforce, so that they can afford to buy their first home. They can afford to downsize if they need to into another home that they can still afford. We'll be there for Canadians, and we have concrete action plans to deal with the environmental crisis that's tied to jobs. It's the only plan that has that. Canadians deserve a government that will get us through the crisis and not take us backward. We can't afford to go back again. Time is running out to deal with some of these issues, particularly climate change. The Liberal plan is forward-thinking and progressive and will make life more affordable for Canadians. And that's at the heart of our vision for the country. I'm committed to using my experience to be a strong advocate for businesses as your member of Parliament. And I hope that I can count on your support.
Thank you, Valerie. Suresh, for closing remarks for you.
Hello. New Democrats are very different because we are working people. Throughout the history of New Democratic Party, we have worked to protect the rights of the people and to provide a better life to everyone. We have been fighting for you during this crisis. We worked for you to increase your CERB from $1,000 to $2,000. We fought for the small businesses to make the wage subsidy go from 10% to 75%. We tried to bring the farmer care for you in the Parliament. We tried to increase the child care. In fact, we tried to force the Liberals to invest $2 billion on child care as an emergency fund. They did not do that. We are going to fight for you for the dental care and the mental health care. Mental health care is such an important thing that families are not sending their family members to the consultant or to the psychologist because they don't have the money to pay the fees. We are going to work for you. There is no reason, and there is no reason to say that we don't have the money for that. We have to find the money for that, and we will find it. Liberals have voted against pharma care, although they promised that. Liberals have voted against the long-term care to be removed from the for-profit sector. We are going to make the long-term care move from the for-profit sector because we consider the life of the loved ones to be very important than any other thing in our country. We don't report to the corporations, so we are not scared of what they think about us. We are working people. Our leader, Jagmeet Singh, is a person who has the courage to fight for you. He is a real leader. He is not a leader who is going to run away in the midst of a crisis. He will be with you. He will fight for you. We are New Democrats, and we will be fighting for you all the time.
Thank you. On behalf of the Chamber and Rogers, I would just like to thank all candidates for taking time from their busy schedules to participate in this forum. If you're a resident of Kitchener South-Hespeler, the election date is rapidly approaching, so please ensure you're aware of your voting location. The Chamber and Rogers hope this forum has provided some relevant perspectives on your issues of concern. Thanks so much for taking part and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Elaine Bates, and I'm the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada candidate for Kitchener South-Hespeler. The 44th general election is taking place under the conditions of the pandemic and a predicted fourth wave, despite the objection of thousands of Canadians. This is a good time to review our experience of the past year and a half and what the pandemic has revealed about the Canadian economy and what is needed. At the outset, the pandemic exposed Canada's lack of a manufacturing base, the result of decades of pursuing the interests of the rich. Canada did not produce its own masks or personal protective equipment despite the experience of SARS, and was unable to keep safe the workers who were keeping everyone else safe. As well, Canada no longer produces vaccines, having privatized the government-owned Connaught laboratories in the 1980s. And now, after spending a reported $9 billion on vaccines, it has not given rise to a Canadian-produced vaccine, leaving the Canadian people at the mercy of foreign monopolies. The pandemic laid bare as well the disastrous effects of privatization in long-term care facilities, where workers were already facing untenable conditions. Deaths in nursing homes are reported to be as high as 69% of Canada's overall COVID-19 deaths. That's 14,000 of our elders, compared to 41% internationally. It's time for a new direction for the economy, one based on self-reliance that has as its aim meeting the claims of all the people and guaranteeing their rights and making Canada a zone for peace. For information, visit the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada website at cpcml.ca.
Hi there, everyone. It's Melissa Baumgartner, your PPC candidate for Kitchener South-Hespeler. I want to take a couple of minutes to address everyone, since we're not there at the debate this evening. I do want to mention a couple of things that are important to the PPC platform. Number one, of course, being ending all of the COVID mandates and restrictions and getting a rational approach to this entire situation happening. We want to make sure that we're focusing on freedom for Canadians and that we're not infringing on anyone's rights and freedoms. We are going to be doing several meet and greets, which I actually would like to encourage people to attend in the coming weeks before the election. And obviously we're closing in on that, less than 2 weeks left. If you would like to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, that would probably be one of the best ways that we can stay connected, so that we'll have an opportunity to connect at these events. And I'd love to talk with you face to face a little bit more about what we have in store with our platform. Definitely do check out our platform and see what we have to offer. If you do go to the PPC platform, you'll be able to take a look at all of the things that we are looking to address with our platform right now for this upcoming election. And as always, if you have any questions at all, please do feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to hear from you. Contact me at ppc.melissabaumgartner@gmail.com and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook again. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time today, everybody at Rogers, and we look forward to meeting with all of you soon.
I'm Tyler Calver, the Conservative candidate for Kitchener South-Hespeler. Regrettably, I was unable to attend this forum, as this week a volunteer of mine was assaulted at our campaign office, and I've been busy this week dealing with this issue with Waterloo Regional Police. First and foremost, the safety of my volunteers and of everyone in our community is of the utmost importance to me. We need to have a safe community with everyone working together so we can ensure that everyone is able to live in a free and democratic society. My team and I have been knocking on over 6,000 doors in the last 2 weeks, and the number one issue that continues to pop up is affordability. We need to lower inflation and make things more affordable for everyone, including seniors, students, and working families. Myself, I will make that one of my top priorities, to make the cost of living more affordable for everyone in our community. The second issue that continues to come up at the doors is surrounding vaccines and vaccine passports. Myself, I believe in the effectiveness of the vaccine, and I encourage everyone who is willing and able to get the vaccine. But I also fundamentally believe in freedoms. We need to live in a free and democratic society. I want to be an MP for everybody. That means vaccinated and unvaccinated, and we need to stop dividing this country and this community on this issue. The third issue that we continue to hear is about affordable housing, and this will be another issue that I will continuously dedicate my time and energy on. We need to make things affordable so younger people and new people coming to this country have the ability to buy a home. There are a number of issues in this community that we need to work on, and that means unity. We are all one Canadian family. We need to be working together. As I've said many times, that with the left and the right foot need to work together to cross the finish line. My message is clear, one of unity. We are all one Canadian family, and I will represent everyone equally in Kitchener South-Hespeler.
Hello, peace. My name is Andrea Morrison, and I'm running for office as a member of Parliament out here in Kitchener, otherwise known as Grand River, South-Hespeler. I am running as an independent, as I feel that many of the people in this district we don't really represent any specific party. I see different colors, red, green, blue, and different parties. However, there are many that don't have a party, and we're just independent making decisions that is best for ourselves. And I am such. I am also an independent. I'm very concerned about our constitutional rights and the charter. I want to make sure that they are maintained because I believe in order, and without order, there is chaos. And I just don't want us to descend into a level of disorder and chaos. And I additionally am very concerned about people such as myself who don't have resources. I want to ensure that we continue to have access to Parliament and to government. So I decided to run and try to make sure that we always have a voice, because we can't really address the needs of the needy without first hearing what our needs are. I'm a former financing attorney, and I'm also someone who's experienced homelessness, and I feel that I would be the best representative for this electoral district. I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak and to share my message, and I'd appreciate any kind of support. This is a very grassroots campaign. Feel free to contact me, 519-830-2560, or you can check out my website, https://morrison519.square.site. Vote independent. Peace.
Hi everyone. My name is Gabe Rose, and I'm the candidate for the Green Party in the riding of Kitchener South-Hespeler. I'm a proud resident of Hespeler, and I'm a young healthcare worker who believes strongly in treating others with kindness and helping those in need of support. My lifelong passion for helping people brought me to a career in healthcare. I currently work as a medical lab technologist at St. Mary's General Hospital in Kitchener. I have previous work and volunteer experience in hospitals, public health, and mental health. My top priorities are transforming our healthcare system into one that is truly universal. This vision includes publicly funded and fully accessible mental health care, addiction support, pharmacare, long-term care, home and community care, dental, vision, and hearing care, and physiotherapy. We also need to address the climate crisis. I believe in transitioning our country away from fossil fuels as soon as possible. The Green Party is the only party with an effective plan for action on climate change. The third crisis we're facing is the affordable housing crisis. It's becoming extremely unaffordable to own or even rent a home these days. One of the main issues is that there's not enough housing supply to meet demand. I would support the creation of a federal, public housing development agency that would be responsible for building hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of homes. I do not believe in overtaxing working class people. The majority of us are already paying more than our fair share of taxes. There is so much waste of taxpayer money that could be spent on better priorities. For example, the purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, fossil fuel subsidies, and even this unnecessary pandemic election, which is expected to cost taxpayers approximately $600 million. Think of all the ways that money could have been used to improve the lives of Canadians. Thank you for listening, and on September 20th, vote Gabe Rose